Page 282. There is ultimately no such thing as your, quote, life, since you and life are not two, but one. Do you see any value in that?
I don't confirm within myself that language.
Okay. Do you see...
I understand, like, life is living you.
Could you put it in different words that would help you?
Well, it's really confusing because he's talking about awakening to your life's purpose.
Right.
So, do I have a life or not? Is it my life?
Fair question. Well, I think...
And he's talking about...
Your life's purpose is to realize that it's not your life. You are life. You don't have a life. You are consciousness. And you're all part of this whole interconnectedness.
Here's my question.
What?
Is that a fact?
Is it?
I have awareness through consciousness.
Okay, so you don't believe that
I
you
have a lifetime.
Are consciousness.
I am a lot of stuff. I'm chemistry. I'm organic material.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm aware of that is consciousness and my awareness. But I am living a life that has a beginning and an end. The life of this organism. So unless I identify with the idea of no self, which is I don't see that in here, then I don't think it's inappropriate to say that it's my life. Because my awareness is my awareness, not yours. And we may both be aware of the consciousness.
Yeah.
But you have a different awareness than I do.
Sure.
So how is that different than saying that you have a different life than I do?
Yeah.
Because our lives are happening in parallel.
Sure.
And they're not going to be, they didn't start at the same time, they're not going to end at the same time.
Yeah. I think what I took from it is the no self approach, plus ceasing to identify with the events of my life as my life.
Yeah.
Versus the organic matter and consciousness that I am. Does that make sense?
I don't know. Does it?
I don't know.
It's your life.
I don't know. It's your life.
See what I mean?
I mean...
But this is why I appreciate having discussions like this and not making everything so defined and so rigid. Because I feel like the whole thesis of this, there's a lot that felt contradictory.
Yes, I agree. And now we're moving into the things that made us go, It seems like he's saying, let go of form, let go of labeling yourself. And yet, these are exactly the ways that you need to do this. Yeah,
that's your ego.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's clearly labeled that part of you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how specifically things were contradictory. We were just talking about our concept of consciousness, and this kind of explains his concept of consciousness.
Stillness has no form. That is why, through thinking, we cannot become aware of it. Thought is form. Yeah, see, this is one that stood out to me. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, I couldn't even follow
Thought is form?
What?
Being aware of stillness means to be still. To be still is to be conscious without thought. What? You are never more, essentially, more deeply yourself than when you are still. When you are still, you are who you were before you temporally assumed this physical and mental form called a person. You are also who you will be when the form dissolves. Okay. When you are still, you are who you are beyond your temporal existence, consciousness, unconditioned, formless, eternal. But you are form when you're still, because you're not moving, because you're a form that can move.
When I read it, I hear
he's saying
being still inside.
He's saying that thought is form. How is that metaphorical?
Because you can identify with it. I think he's using these words interchangeably.
Well, I don't appreciate it.
Like symbolically. So when I read this, I hear when you're still inside, you're not identifying with the thoughts, just like meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, oh, yeah, I agree that, when I die, my consciousness leaves me and becomes part of something else. But that's my question is,
I wouldn't say it like that, but I know what you're saying.
Right. It sounds to me like he's saying that we are consciousness, not that we have consciousness. Does that make sense?
I understand your words.
I understand your words. But I mean, how can we know that?
Right.
Either way.
That is a problem that I often have is how do you know that? What are you basing that on? How could you even know that? That is just your thought about it. Being aware of stillness is to be still. I think he's just trying to fill the page.
I think so too. I wrote, do you agree with this particular phrasing of the concept that we are consciousness? And I didn't think so. This is an example of when things that are clearly speculation are presented as fact.
Yeah.
All things are vibrating energy fields in ceaseless motion. Well, that's true. Molecules are just moving so fast that we perceive them as still. The chair you sit on, the book you are holding in your hands appear solid and motionless only because that is how your senses perceive their vibrational frequency. That is to say, the incessant movement of the molecules, atoms, electrons, and subatomic particles that together create what you perceive as a chair, a book, a tree, or a body. What we perceive as physical matter is energy vibrating, moving, at a particular range of frequencies. Sure, but then he leaps to thoughts consist of the same energy vibrating at a higher frequency than matter, which is why they cannot be seen or touched. Thoughts have their own range of frequencies, with negative thoughts at the lower end of the scale and positive thoughts at the higher. The vibrational frequency of the pain body resonates with that of negative thoughts.
We're falling apart.
Which is why only those thoughts can feed the pain body. You see what happened there?
You see this?
You see?
This is some Scientology stuff
we started out with some...
We're going up the tone scale.
Like, agreed upon science, and then we directly apply it to something he made up.
Other people have said such nonsense.
Sure.
Like Deepak Chopra, who I cannot get on board with. But yeah, that is why I hope that people who come across this and find it useful for the things about it that I think can generally be agreed upon as useful do have, flags raised when they read stuff like that.
Sure.
Because if they're just taking it in as it is,
face value.
This guy knows what he's talking about. He's a spiritual teacher.
Face value.
Mm-hmm. That could be problematic. So I'm, on the one hand, glad that this sort of homogenized presentation of these ideas is available to people.
Yeah.
But it could be a problem if people stop there.
Yes. And focus solely on this version. Yeah. I do feel like it is a synthesis of many things that have been around a lot longer than Eckhart Tolle.
Which he does often give attributes.
Reference to.
Of quotes of Jesus, Buddha, etc.
I don't think it's the flavor of this kind of spirituality for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I have gleaned useful things from it.
Yeah. Most of it, for me, was reminders.
Yeah.
Not revelations.
Yeah, fair. I didn't get anything really original from this.
No, and I personally didn't get anything new out of it beyond the power of now.
Yeah, I get that.
But when I read The Power of Now, I did get some out of it, but found it better presented elsewhere after that, and then devalued The Power of Now.
Right.
The book.
I get that.
The concept is great.
Sure.
But I think that both that and this were intriguing for like 25, 30 pages. And then the language started to get into this is where we're going? Do we need to go there?
Yeah. I felt the same way. For the first 30 pages, I was like, what's your problem? This isn't great.
Yeah. Because when I gave this to you, I was like,
I don't
But-
need this back, is what you said.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna give it away, and you said you wanted to read it. I was like, okay, you can have it. And I think that eventually you're gonna be like, wait, what?
You said, let me know when you roll your eyes.
Yes.
And I did.
Yeah, the first few days you're like, I don't know, I'm digging it.
I'm liking
And
it.
you're like, oh boy.
Oh, wait. So, as part of the how is this fact train, I wrote underneath it ... question mark. The human brain is a highly differentiated form through which consciousness enters this dimension. It contains approximately 100 billion nerve cells called neurons, about the same number as there are stars in our galaxy, which could be seen as a macrocosmic brain. The brain does not create consciousness, but consciousness created the brain, the most complex physical form on Earth, for its expression. When the brain gets damaged, it does not mean you lose consciousness. It means consciousness can no longer use that form to enter this dimension. You cannot lose consciousness because it is in essence who you are. You can only lose something that you have, but you cannot lose something that you are.
Okay.
I feel like
So-
he just takes us in circles.
Yes. And he's not a neuroscientist. So definitely take all that stuff with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
How does that mean that you are consciousness and you don't have consciousness?
Yeah, I don't know.
That you're not aware of
he
consciousness.
says so. He says that your essence is consciousness. But if your brain malfunctions, you don't lose consciousness. I feel like
Okay,
he's
so
using
if you
that
have-
word operationally,
Maybe.
and that's confusing.
Because if you split your corpus callosum and your left and right brain are not connected.
Yeah.
And
The
right
left hand does not know what the right hand is doing.
Yeah. So where's
Literally.
the consciousness?
Where?
Where are you?
Where is it? Right?
That's also
Well-
a question of where's the soul.
Yeah, I thought that was really...
Yeah, I don't think the brain
Confusing.
creates consciousness, but I think the brain evolved to create awareness of consciousness.
Yes.
Or allow the awareness of consciousness
Yes. Yes.
to communicate it.
I like that. Okay, when statements are made to sound like prophecy, how culty does this sound?
Give it to us.
And as though it's already happened. As the new consciousness emerges, some people will feel called upon
Yeah.
to form groups that reflect the enlightened consciousness. These groups will not be collective egos. The individuals who make up these groups will have no need to define their identity through them. They no longer look to any form to define who they are. Dissolving the human ego by bringing it into the light of awareness, this will be one of the main purposes of these groups, whether they be enlightened businesses, charitable organizations, schools, or communities of people living together. Enlightened collectives will fulfill an important function. This sounds like he's reading somebody's patriarchal blessing or something. Enlightened collectives will fulfill an important function in the arising of the new consciousness. Just
The new
as
consciousness.
just as egoic collectives pull you into unconsciousness and suffering, the enlightened collective can be a vortex.
The good stuff.
Get this. It can be a vortex for consciousness that will accelerate the planetary shift.
Oh boy, we're going to clear the planet.
What? How is he not a cult leader? There have to be groups of people that like are totally all in on this and
Yeah,
that
oh,
like
yeah.
treat him like the savior, right?
Yes.
That are like, yeah, I'm conscious and you're conscious and we're building a new earth.
Yeah.
A new species is arising on the planet. It is arising now and you are it. Exclamation point, end of book. What?
What?
Yeah. Okay. So this is like
That makes no sense.
if you join a cult and they don't tell you where you're going, then you just like end up doing a bunch of stuff that, you know, you've been conditioned to believe is okay. If you started reading this book with that sentence,
Yeah.
this is where we're going.
Right.
This is how you're going to get me to believe what you're saying. Because he starts out like, I have no problems with what he's saying. Then it gets progressively weirder and more prophetic and more weird facty until he says a new species is arising. And the book is over.